Blake, when you set up payment terms or I guess payment schedules with your contractors, and and talking to Sarah, she's requested 50% down and then payments every week. Um, uh, my fear with that is there might be weeks that people aren't at the job site and I'm paying for nothing type mindset. Um, but I know that like in some of the course material, you've laid out like a fifth up front, and then after the kitchen is done, another fifth, and then whatever. Can you walk through some of that a little bit more for me so that I can potentially go back to Sarah and discuss this a little bit further?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the goal of this is essentially to protect your downside. And that's what a
Mhm.
lot of the planning and process that we focus on is geared toward. It's protecting your downside because
Yep.
on these properties, you've got a ton of upside. The concern is, how do I protect my downside? And so one of the ways you protect your downside is you analyze the property. You figure out what it's going to cash flow before you even offer. And another way that you protect your downside on the rehab side of things is you limit how much money you pay out of pocket until things are done. And so what it looks like practically is, let's say you've got a job that's a $20,000 job. Right? It's reasonable for you to pay some money up front because they need materials. Now, one way you could go with that is you could get say a Home Depot card and add them as a secondary user, where you've got to get, you can even get text approval. They say, hey, someone's trying to buy this amount, right? And you realize, hey, that's my contractor. You approve it and it goes, or they can call you, something like that. That's one way that you can manage the materials. Another way would just be you give them a distribution up front. That the goal for that then is to figure out how much have they done with that, or are they just asking for more withdrawals to fund another deal that they're way behind on or something like that. And so what I like to do generally up front when I'm working with a new contractor, I'm trying to figure out, are they trustworthy? How much value are they bringing to the table? Communication, all of those things. So I'll give them the first distribution, and according to what we've defined. And what we've defined, I like to have them define it. Say, hey, I want to make sure you've got everything you need. I also want to make sure that we're making the right progress according to what we've discussed. Right? I'm sure that'll be the case, but I want to make sure that we've got mutual accountability there. So what I'd like to do is break this up into 4 payments. Right? One, I give you up front because I know you got to get materials and things like that. And then one, I give you at the end. Right. And the goal of that is to make sure everything gets done. Right. And then I give you two payments in the middle. All right. If it's $20,000 payment, it's split out to about $5,000 payment. Mm-hmm. And then what I say is, you order these things. Right. If let's say you want flooring throughout, paint throughout, you've got a little bit of roof work that needs to be done, and then you've got 2 bathrooms and 2 bedrooms, right? You say up front, you get the $5,000. The next payment you get after you've completed all exterior paint and roofing, right? And then the next paint, or the next distribution you receive after I've seen that you've completed both bedrooms and 1 bathroom, right? But you let them plan that schedule, right? Because if the first requirement for them is paint and roof, what if it rains? And then they're working on the inside, right? They're working on the inside to get everything done. And they say, well, like we did these things on the inside. And then if you look at it and you say, oh, these are about equivalent, that's fine, and release the distribution, that's great. The goal is making sure you're getting progress. But if you're not getting progress and they're using, well, it rained, so we worked on this thing, that's a way to protect yourself as well. So what I have them do is outline, these are the distributions. And if they write that up, perfect. That should provide enough for them up front. So that's the way that I would do it at first. I have, now that I work with her more consistently, I've done the 50% up front, then I just pay 50% on the back end. If she needs more money, or that any specific contractor needs more money for materials up front, what you could do is say, I will pay for all the materials on the first row. So you just give me a call when you're at Home Depot, let me know ahead of time so I can plan my day and whatnot, and I will pay for it over the phone. right? And we'll take care of it that way. That's another way that you can do it. But yeah, that's the way that I've done it in the past. What I would discourage is splitting it up into unreasonable amounts of payments, or reasonable amounts of the actual payment amount. So for example, you get a $20,000 job, paying in $2,000 distributions is just not, there's so much overhead in that. It's a headache for them. And they have very real needs. Like they need to get lumber if they're going to frame out a wall. They need to get shingles if they're going to replace your roof. And $2,000 is probably not going to be enough for those materials. And so that's only going to set you back on time. So I think, $5,000 payments at a time is pretty reasonable. If you're on a $30,000 job, splitting it up, 4 to 6 payments makes sense. But I wouldn't split it up into like $3,000 payments or something like that, just because I think it adds a lot of headache on their end too.
Okay, that's helpful. When I talked with her, she said that almost all of her customers are 50% down and then weekly payments. And that seems like a ton of overhead. Like I would much rather, I actually would rather do like 40% down, maybe 20% middle payment, and then 40% back end.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of like, here's how much work we did this week, please send us $2,000.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm talking to her about that and trying to see what should land on. I also think it will motivate my job to be done faster if I'm not paying weekly, because now I have a 40%, I don't know, 40% bucket that is just waiting to be dispersed as soon as stuff is signed off between her property manager, etc.
Yeah.
So, okay, yeah, that's good to know and helpful for me to keep talking with Sarah about.
Yeah, and I think one thing that's helpful there is just keeping those communication lines open and saying, this is why I want it this way. If you can meet this need another way, that's totally fine. But here's what I want to protect against. I want to protect against me paying 50% up front, and then I'm paying every week and not very much is getting done. And then I get to the end and I've only got like $2,000 that is left, but we've got 50% of the job to do. Right. And it's not going to motivate anybody. Like $2,000 in your world probably isn't that much money. Right. And so I want to motivate getting done faster. And so whatever will do that, I'm in, and maybe that just says, hey, you as the general contractor, I give you a $500 bonus if we finish on time. Right. And if we finish, a week late, you get a $300 bonus. If we finish 2 weeks late, you get $100, or whatever that is. You could take that approach. You could also do, if you get done early, you pay them per week or per day. If they get done late, you pay them, you hit them with a fee. I think, motivating with paying them extra money is probably healthier for the long-term relationship instead of a fee if they're running late. Though I would think that would cause some significant amount of urgency, but relationships are really important.
Yeah.